Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to episode 233 of Empty Betters. I'm your host, Harrison Scholes, and I'm going to toss it across the screen to my co-host, Mr. Nick Manella. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, buddy. It is a lovely Tuesday evening here in Maryland where the weather cannot decide what season it wants to be because it's 75 at 3 p.m. and then about 45 by 9 p.m. So we're in just that lovely period of fall. When does winter even start anymore? I don't know. Where you like wake up needing to go to work with like a ski suit and a winter jacket, and then by the time you get there, you've probably lost about 20 pounds. So that's where we're at.
The weather rants are so back. They were due. It's been a while for us, but that's typical of an EB intro. I am now going to toss it across the screen to my other co-host up in Wisco, Mr. Mac Vogel. What's going on?
What's up, guys? I've had a kind of a whirlwind of the last 24-ish hours. This time last night, I was hammering down a filet and shrimp at Texas Roadhouse in Vincennes, Indiana. Then early this morning around, oh God, 6:30 in the morning, I was actually covered in mud on a farmer's field because he was showing me his duck blinds and we were riding his ATV all through a bunch of mud. And then 6 hours in the car later, I'm sitting back in Milwaukee in front of my laptop. So
Let's
it's
hear
been
about these
been
duck blinds,
interesting.
though.
Yeah, they were pretty cool, honestly. I gotta hand it to this dude. I was mostly there to cover the farm stuff, but he's a big hunter and he was I'm kind of writing the story about him, not just about the farm, so I wanted to capture some of his hobbies and personal stuff too. And yeah, he was real excited to show me that stuff.
Mac, you lead a interesting life. I will say that. It is a funny one too. I always enjoy hearing the travel stories.
It is fascinating. I mean, there are times where I just have to pause and think for a minute, like, what? How did I get to Vincennes, Indiana, in this guy's duck blind covered in mud? How did I get here? Like,
It's at 7 a.m.
I
What
had that
were the
exact
choices
thought
I
early this
made?
morning. Yeah, I was like, this is just really interesting.
Oh man, I love it. Well, glad you made it back in time.
Yep,
We've
here
got
I am.
a very good episode on tap. Lots going on in the league. Kind of feels like the beginning of the season we were reaching for stuff to talk about. Everybody's talking about the same stuff. But man, we've got a lot of news, a lot of drama, a lot of takes in this episode. So we'll get right to it. But want to let you guys know that we do have an interview for this episode. We were joined by Robert Babiak, also known or better known as the other Babs, one of those hockey influencers that maybe some of you will recognize from TikTok or Instagram. He just joined the show a little bit ago, and it was a great interview. Talked a lot about like minor league hockey, college hockey, a lot of the news that's come over through there, content creation, which was really an interesting thing to pick his brain about, considering he's relatively new to the space, but has had a lot of success. So it's a great interview. We'll probably lead off the episode with that, and then we'll get back with you guys for the news and takes afterwards. But we're going to toss it off to Babs right now.
All right, everyone. It's now my official pleasure to welcome to the show the official Babs because we just learned that one of them is no longer working. So there's no the other Babs anymore. We just have Babs with us today. What's going on, dude?
Yeah, no, people are making that joke. Mike Babcock no longer really allowed to be in hockey so much he got canceled. So now the joke I used to make with my username doesn't really apply. So it's just me, man.
Last man standing. You got to like that.
Yep.
Well, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to join the show today.
Mhm.
We're really excited to have you. Like everyone else, we kind of just want to start at the beginning. So why don't you give us a little bit of a dive into how you got into hockey in the first place and what made you fall in love with the game?
Yeah, I always loved the game growing up, and like I wasn't blessed with very much athletic ability other than cardio. So I had the mind for it, but I never had the skill to play like good hockey. But I was such a just a nerd with it growing up and stuff, and doing the research into it, watching all the games with my dad and everything like that. That it was just what I wanted to do. So I went to university, because we were sold a dream that if you take the sport management program at Brock, you can be like Kyle Dubas. Not a guy who I particularly want to be like at this point. He's kind of not done a good job consistently now. So that kind of burnt that huge point. But I mean, basically every other kid thought they could be GM of the Leafs. Turned out not to be the case, obviously, because I'm 30 and I just yap on the internet now. So I was at school, got involved with the Fed, which is the fifth tier pro hockey. So I just like, helping out with the team. And that went the way it did. And eventually I was coaching in the Fed as an assistant. I kind of just over time just got to prove that I knew what I was talking about. I just didn't play. So I got to kind of break through that glass ceiling. Hate the term, but it's kind of the way to categorize it. And yeah, then COVID hit and my coaching career took a very long pause. And then I continued the pause because people liked hearing me talk about stuff and it paid a lot more. And that's really about the rundown of how this all worked out.
Wow. I mean, that is a wild rundown right there. What was the transition for you, like getting into coaching? How did that all
Yeah.
start out? What made you want to take that leap in the first place?
I didn't necessarily like plan on doing it. I always thought I was just gonna be like an off ice type of person. But the one junior team I regretfully ended up having to go work for said, "Hey, would you be on the bench?" I said, "Sure." And then I was running the forward lines, and I was like, "Okay, like this I'm finding this very easy. Like it was going very well for me." And I said to myself, maybe this is a skill I have or something I should work on. So then I kind of just was like, "Oh, they don't really have a lot of off ice like." You don't have like a big GM and assistant GM and scouts in minor pro hockey until you move up the levels. And if you do, they're not getting really paid much of anything. So I'm like, well, if I want to try and work the ladder, I have to be able to be on the bench and have those skills because there's no way to work up the ladder and get paid in hockey at the same time if I'm not taking those roles and having to do that type of stuff on the bench. So I just kind of worked at it. And then, ironically enough, just like I went to two really just awful teams I wish I never got involved with, both that I probably wouldn't have. Um, Minus a bad recommendation from one of my buddies. So put me in this weird spot. And in the summer, I was talking to my buddies who run a hockey agency. I was like, hey, like I gotta find a spot. Like I don't want to work in this junior league anymore. Like I never wanted to be here in the first place. Do you have anything for me? They're dealing with guys that actually matter in hockey, like guys signing AHL contracts and stuff. But they go, we kind of talked to this guy down in the Fed. Would you go to this other team? And I said, sure, yeah. Like the team that I worked for in the Fed initially, like they have no ability to hire me or do anything like that. Maybe like this team would be willing to put up some money. And young kid coming out of school, you don't think you're going to make much of anything. So I went to a camp in Toronto that the guys that run the Fed were operating. And I just went in and said, hey, like I spoke to so and so. Like he said, you guys would be willing to like have a chat. And then I think like a half an hour after talking to the guy who owns the Fed and at the time owned the Watertown Wolves, he basically just offered me a job and asked like what I could do for the team and would I, be an assistant coach or whatever because they didn't have a head coach at the time. And I just kind of was like, okay, sure. Like that's it. And he goes, yeah, how much do you want to get paid? I threw out a number that would like allow me to like not be poor. And they said, sure. So I just kind of impressed him in that period of time. And I mean, it's the Fed. It's not special. But he had produced junior hockey players running a team that's now in the USPHL Premier, like Thomas Vanek, Connolly was one of his, Rob Schremp. Like he has a very decorated resume of hockey guys he's developed. So I guess I said the right stuff, and from that point on, just on and off the ice, trying to help that team, working my way through. So yeah, it was just all kind of accidents, but also like trying to like claw my way up. I probably went about it like the worst possible way. I always tell people to be nothing like me. But yes, to long-windedly answer that question of yours, I just had to because I was trying to claw my way up. And so I just did, but I was able to prove that I could do it. Like I didn't openly have players being like, shut the fuck up or like, you don't know what you're talking about. I had enough reinforcement of people telling me that like I knew the things and stuff. It was just if you didn't play junior hockey, like there's stuff that you have to learn as a young guy coming in. And I was able to learn that because I wasn't cocky with it at all. And I had people telling me I knew what I was talking about. So just, yeah, like trial and error and failing forward, basically.
It's a good way to put it.
Mhm.
Love the shout out for former guest of the show, Robbie Shrimp. That's awesome to hear. I
Mhm.
love that dude. He's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, Rob, and like you have someone Don. God, Don, the guy that runs the Fed, is in his 70s. I want to say now, so he's been around for a very long time. Coached in the OJ and stuff. So like, you get the opportunity to have somebody teach you things, which he actively did quite a bit. But then there was just a whole lot of room for me to step up with that team and stuff that needed to get done that wasn't getting done, and try to just do stuff the right way. Again, it was a huge learning experience. I definitely didn't do as good of a job as I could have, but it was a good opportunity. But then COVID cut my legs out from under me in that situation. So, which led me to yapping on camera now.
So I would love to hear about that transition because I think if my memory is right, we've had one, maybe two, what I will say, and please don't cringe at this word, but like hockey influencers, like
Mhm.
guys who are pretty active on social. But I want to hear like your story. Like, what angle did you take? Did you know you're going to take it seriously, or were you kind of dipping your toes in? I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah. So when COVID hit, I went home not knowing what was going to go on. Ended up having to go back to the States and get a waiver to cross the border to get the rest of my stuff and then come back to Canada again. And around that time, I found out my team had been sold. The team I was with, Don actually didn't tell me you sold the team. I found out from my buddy. He goes, "Oh yeah, what's up?" And I go, "I have no idea what you're talking about." That was really embarrassing, honestly, when that happened. Because I'm like, you couldn't give me a heads up. You just sold the team, bro. Like, what are we doing? Because I had extensive conversations with him about my role with the team for the following year. Because I had to step up a lot, and also kind of the owner wanted the things to go a certain way, and the head coach wasn't doing them. And then eventually he goes, "Why the fuck aren't we doing this?" And I say, "This is what I would like to do, but like I'm the assistant coach, and I have to listen to what Paul wants." And he goes, "You need to put a lighter up to his balls and make him do it." And I go, like, "This is an unfair position for me to be in, but like I'll try and push things the way that you want them to be. You signed my check. The loyalty is to you, but like this is kind of an unfair spot." And I had also done a pile of other stuff for the team that like wasn't part of my job, and dealt with the just the baloney of a team that was kind of had players that didn't need to be in the locker room anymore, and there was just a lot of stuff that happened. So I was like, I'm going to get my opportunity. Like, you need to give me more responsibility, and I've earned this because I did what you said and burnt a bridge with the head coach by trying to do the right thing for the team and whatever you wanted me to do. But that was whatever. And then the new owner of the team comes in and goes, "Hey, I'll rehire you, but like I'm not able to give you a pay raise or like bump your roll up." And I go, just like, "No, like I'm not doing that. Like I literally earned it." It's honestly kind of crazy that you would like not even offer me a raise at least. And I was like, "Okay, you know what? I don't think I don't want to stick around for this." So like, hey, like I quit. And then they hired a head coach who I wouldn't have worked with anyway, so that didn't end up mattering. But I was like, "Hey, I'm going to sit out the year. Like, I probably don't have much opportunities. Try to find like a junior hockey team to scout for." But I was just bored, and me and my friends were playing Warzone, so I started posting video game like content on the internet because I was just so bored. I had nothing going on. Like, play video games, wake up, and then go to bed. There wasn't anything going on, so it was an accident. I was just bored and needed something to do, and the video game stuff crushed. But there's no money in that industry at all. And I ended up getting picked up working for like a media company because it's a weird long story for that one too. They were hiring for a role, and I was like, "Okay, sure, I'll do this." The role fell through, so they offered me like part-time work trying to build up one of their sports podcasts. It was a sports betting show. So I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'm gonna do that." And I had an offer to go back to the Fed for the money and role I wanted, but I was looking at it going like, COVID was still kind of like a thing, and I was like, well, if the season just like ends partway through and I turn down this job, like that's bad. That's a bad move. I should just sit out this year too. Like things still aren't sorted out, and I don't want to have to move down to the States again and move back in a few months, whatever. Not worth taking the risk. I'll sit out another year. And at that job, I started talking to them about stuff. And my boss said something to me one day about we were trying to negotiate like a rate. They were going to pay me to do something. And he goes like, "Well, you just post video game content. Like you're not a sports guy." And I went, "Oh, okay." And then I launched like Babs, my like hockey content on the internet out of spite, basically because he was being a dickhead. And yeah, so my boss was a dick, and I went, "Okay, I'll show you." And then my videos initially did so well that it just springboarded into yet another accident. It was just basically a fuck you from me. And then things built the way they did. I decided that, being around my family and making more money, because like I got paid $250 a week in the Fed. So basically $1,000 cash a month. And they pay for my phone, internet, and my hotel. Plus I get per diem on the road and, the odd extra bit of money, but it was just not a ton. And then you say, "Okay, I go back, get a new deal." It's still not a lot of money, even with them doubling what I was going to make if I had gone back when they asked. So I'm like, what's the point of doing this? Like, I have this other stuff going on. This is easy. I sit in my room, like there's no pressure. Um, my girlfriend likes it. I'm actually around. She would only see me like 3 weeks a year if I was coaching. So I just basically made the choice just to do this instead and not go back to coaching. And then, yeah, it was just a happy accident. Kept doing stuff. Did some UFC stuff for a while. Interviewed some UFC champs and like a pile of other stuff. But the hockey stuff just kept people kept asking for stuff and the videos kept going the way they did. So then I just said, I guess I'll just become a content creator instead. Like this seems like it's higher paying and less nonsense to deal with, and I don't have to worry about climbing the ladder. Like I would have been happy if I was in the coast by 35 years old, but I would still barely be making money. So I just kind of had to like weigh my option that way, and it just went the way it did.
Since switching over to the content side of things, have you found it rewarding? If so, what's been the most rewarding part for you?
Yeah, for sure. Like I get DMs, and I'm not trying to pump my own tires by saying this, but I'll get DMs from people saying like, "Hey, thanks for making the content you do. Like it's helped me learn a lot." Because there's not exactly a lot of people that cover what I do or make the type of content that I am. Because that's the whole kind of the point of my channel is I was just covering stuff that other people weren't, or trying to just shed light on problems in the sport. Like I did a series of like red flags for junior hockey players. Like if your team does this, like leave right away. Like it's a bad sign. So just stuff like that. So I'll get feedback from players. I've helped maybe like 15 guys sign pro contracts from the content I've made. Trying to help my buddies out who are still coaching, being like, if you want to play in this one spot or whatever, hit me up. So I've got positive feedback from that. But overall, like I've tried to be very positive with the content I've put out there. Like I could just tell all these negative stories from the Fed that would get millions of views. Like it would crush, but I don't want to do any of that. Like I don't think it's the Fed gave me this big opportunity, and to like go in and dunk on it after just to get views, I think would be pretty scummy. So I try and be very positive with what I'm doing and trying to help people out because you're only really as strong as the people who support you. So I've tried to keep that mentality with the content.
Is there any like piece of advice you'd give to someone who's trying to get into like that same space where they think of how many guys that are in their early or mid 20s, don't have a lot of life responsibility, and they love sports and they feel like they could do something, but maybe they don't know how to approach it. Like, is there any advice you could give to someone in that box?
Yeah, like you just got to like make content that other people aren't making. So like that's what I did like initially, and that's why I think I got a response. But I had a bit of authority in the space because I'd coached shitty professional hockey, so that allowed me to have a little bit of authority in the space, and I knew stuff that like just wasn't public knowledge. But generally speaking, I just try and provide people value by discussing things that like other people's aren't, or sometimes I'll my takes or whatever. Like I don't do a ton of like NHL like just reaction stuff, but sometimes I will, and I think people sometimes respect the take I have from it because like there's not a pile of guys sitting there that like didn't play that also then went into coach. So it's been able to give me at least some unique perspective where I can look at it from like the fan side of things, but then also having to do the thing side of things and give like a balanced and fair explanation that if you watch all of my videos, you'll eventually like pick up like a ton of stuff about how hockey works, but I don't like there's no gatekeeping in any of it. Like I explain it in a way that like a 12-year-old can understand. So, yeah, you just gotta provide people value and like just not try and compete with people who are there's already I can't compete with TSN talking just random NHL takes. That won't ever happen. So you just have to find a niche and then serve it in a way that does well. That isn't all just like rage bait or something like that. Like I basically just tell stories, you know?
I
Yeah.
think that's a great point, and going back to your point about doing something that people aren't doing, like,
Mhm.
like you mentioned, it's hard to compete with TSN or ESPN, and every NHL team now has what, at least five probably podcasts that are somewhat profitable,
Mhm.
surrounding their brand. So love that you always try and put positivity and a spotlight on the junior stuff and the stuff that's not necessarily in the direct spotlight. I think that's a huge part of what makes your content so successful.
Yeah, and I'm very I try to make sure like I keep in perspective how lucky I was. Like people just let me do stuff. Like there was no like I grinded really hard and then earned everything. There was a decent amount of people just saying, "Oh, sure, okay, go ahead." So that I got very lucky with that sense. I took a job at the right opportunity when I like basically passed on, a step forward in my dream career. I passed on and just took something else. So I got very lucky. Like I say to people, like I don't want anyone to try and take the path that I did. I failed forward. I got very lucky. I don't think I'm a great role model for anybody whatsoever. I got very lucky, but because of all that, I try and make sure I'm giving back, like responding to messages when people take the time to write me something and everything like that, or responding to comments and trying to make, content that my community's asked for, that type of thing. And that's why I try and get back to the hockey space by helping junior hockey players out, or like the guys sign pro deals. Like it is so crazy and like hard when I make that, hey, do you want to play pro hockey video? It might eat like 6 or 8 hours of my time having to look at people's league prospects and going through like DMing people, or like that whole process, or going through my DMs and trying to sort that all out. It's a lot of work, but I feel like it's very important to do that stuff, given just how lucky I was to be able to be in the spot that I am now.
So speaking of junior hockey, we've got
Mhm.
some enormous news coming over this past week that I know we were talking about a little bit before the show regarding the kind of relation between junior hockey and college hockey going forward. For a lot of our listeners, I feel like maybe they're not super well versed on what is going on with the news lately.
Mhm.
Maybe you could fill them in and then give your take on the matter.
Yeah. So for the longest time, CHL players, so guys that played in the WHL, QMJHL, or OHL, were not allowed to play NCAA hockey. You could apply for a waiver, which I've seen one elite prospects profile that had the OHL and NCAA in it. So like it basically, the waiver never was ever accepted or used very often. And the reason for this is because the NCAA deemed major junior players professionals, when I think kids in the O might get like $600 a month for living expenses, which is gone from the living expenses, quite literally. They get treated like pros, but they don't get compensated like it whatsoever. So it's not pro. Like everything around it is pro except for the compensation. The players even sued to try and get paid, and the government said like didn't rule on their side. So they were very much legally proven not to be professional athletes. And over time, people have gotten more frustrated with this situation, because what it meant in Canada was if you're the best player at your age group, you had to decide if you were going to play junior A hockey, which they didn't deem professional, or CHL hockey, which they did, and then you would not be able to play NCAA after that. It was completely unfair, and honestly a very corrupt system that was put in place to basically prop up leagues other than major junior and the NCAA itself. With NIL coming in, it made it very hard for them to not have this go forward. And also players sued the NCAA, which now I guess that lawsuit will still go forward because they're trying to receive some compensation for the wrong done to them. But the NCAA ruled now that you can play in the CHL and then move on to the NCAA. We don't have a full breakdown of the exact rules that will be in place for these transitions, as CHL players have contracts with clauses in them that may cause some things that need to get sorted out, such as like the NHL's relationship with drafted players from the CHL, having a clause for NCAA players in there and clauses for CHL players, because you couldn't play both, so they were able to function. Now those clauses like conflict with each other. So there's a lot of little details to be sorted out with this, but what it means is we get to have best on best hockey. The best players in Canada will play in the best leagues, and guys won't go to the States necessarily to play in the USHL. They'll just stay in Canada. So it's a win-win. Canada supplies so many players to the United States for pro hockey, and in turn, we take so many junior hockey players in and teams into our leagues. It's just balancing things and creating a free market that results in best on best hockey, which is best for the United States and Canada, because best on best just results in the better development of players. The system made no fucking sense before. Now it makes sense, but there's going to be a lot of ripple effects with the changes that have been made because of this.
Yeah, I feel like people, especially around here, because, the USHL is not necessarily the biggest thing. I mean, we know about it because, we've had friends that have played there, or, we've watched kids that are older than us go play there. But, you know, I feel like people didn't really understand how many Canadian kids came down here at such a young age to play in that league and make it what it was, really.
hmm Yeah, and it's just one of those stupid things. You had kids going to play in the NA as well,
Right.
and they should just be playing at home. And it's also taking spots away from American players in junior hockey, which doesn't need to be the case. Now, at the college level, at the highest possible level, sure, that is fine. And also, we allow that to happen in our junior hockey leagues at the highest level. Leagues like the BCHL, for example, they're screwed. Like it's a very big problem. We're already seeing CHL teams poach BCHL guys. The Kitchener Rangers just pulled a guy who is committed and was drafted by Chicago in the third round, but I can't remember his name. But they just got him right out of the BCHL. He has no reason to be in the BCHL anymore. He can just play at home in the OHL with no repercussions. So again, that stuff just doesn't make sense to have in there. Like it's just so unfair to a player. Now it's balanced. So the highest levels, NHL will have just best on best, college will have best on best, and the top levels of junior hockey will have best on best. It's just a win for everyone.
Do you think there will be a situation where we'll see some like A-list blue chip prospects go and maybe do like 1 or 2 years
Yeah.
in the O and then do like 1 or 2 years in college and then just go straight to the show?
Yeah, it's so I've been reading about this a lot, and I have to try and dig into more of the CHL player contract stuff because now that stuff's very relevant, as before it didn't really necessarily matter as much. Um, the players sign contracts, so they're kind of expected to play out their eligibility in major junior if the team wants to keep them. Or if the NHL pulls the player up, he has to play in the NHL. He can't go play in the minors if he's drafted out of the CHL. They're going to probably have to put some language in that supports that. What I believe will happen is for goalies, which the development cycle for goalies in North America is so hard because there's not enough pro spots. You're having like really high quality guys playing the ECHL, which there was nothing wrong with that, but there just wasn't enough spots. So you'd have a guy like Cody Porter, who was almost, a world junior player. He was a top player in the WHL. He had to play in the Fed for his first pro season. That makes no sense. Cody doesn't belong there. He was having NHL teams still look at him playing in the Fed. A goalie coach still actively looking at this guy being like, yeah, if he, gets healthy and everything like that and puts on a good performance, this guy, he'll end up in the ECHL and then maybe we can give him an opportunity. That shouldn't be the case, but it won't be the case anymore because a guy like Cody could have just gone and played D1 after that and been in a better situation because going from major junior and everything you get there to the Fed is crazy. And I've had a goalie from the USHL, for example, played in the Fed last year. And he told me personally, he goes, it's actually kind of harder to play here because the skill level of the defense is so much worse than it was in the USHL. Like I have to deal with 10 breakaways a game on the odd time. Like that's a terrible transition. It puts me in a bad spot. So for development, that just sucked. Now goalies who don't necessarily pop off at the right spot or just prospects that they don't want to have to bury down on the coast can play college hockey. So I think it takes the pressure off goalies quite a bit. They're probably the ones that are going to win the most out of this situation is like major junior goalies for sure.
I'm just curious from your perspective, a guy who has a ton of knowledge about minor league hockey and college hockey and all that. It seems like in the last, I don't know, I guess ever since COVID kind of ended, for lack of a better term, that college hockey's exploded. There's always been diehards for that, but now, self-admittedly, I wouldn't barely watch college hockey except for the Frozen Four national championship beforehand. And now I'm trying to dial in as much as I can. I know there's a lot of casuals who are even trying to do that now. What do you think has led to college hockey kind of getting this boom after the pandemic?
Guys are getting drafted from so many programs high now again. There's a while where major junior was really dominating for a bit. And back before that period of time happened, you were having Miracle, you look at all those really top end players, they were all playing college hockey. That sort of went away a bit, but then it started to pick up yet again because parents kind of looked at the opportunities in the CHL and went this isn't exactly the best spot to put my kid in. I shouldn't put them in a position where their eligibility is ruined. Which was an unfair position for parents to be put in in the first place. But I think you just saw so many star players playing and high draft picks playing college hockey that it just made it interesting. And then honestly, I think Spit and Chicklets has a lot to do with the fact that people were started paying attention to college hockey more because they were talking about it. We don't you don't go and think about some sort. The NFL's got 900 podcasts and 900 shows and ESPN, NBC, CBS, and they all kind of cover something different. Hockey didn't have a whole lot of coverage, and if they did, it was regionalized to things. So what Spit and Chicklets kind of did was get a lot of attention on it. They've also had big opinions, and there was a huge debate about could a U Sports team, how would they stack up against the NCAA, which was brought up on Chicklets. I think got a lot of people talking. So I think there was just conversations had at a high level that weren't happening before that caused people to consider it more in their Rolodex of sports things that they're going to pay attention to.
Fair enough. I'd probably agree with that. That the series that they do too behind the scenes, I mean, that's phenomenally well done.
Yeah. And then you also, and I got tickets for this in London coming up. You're going to see like the U.S. National Development Program play the CHL All Stars.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that'll be very interesting. And they're opening things up because that stuff wouldn't happen before because they were scared to match them up because if one blew out the other, and recruiting wise, it causes such a problem. Now that we're getting more of this like free open market and it's not like pitting everything against each other, I just think that there's just more space and more opportunity for that stuff. And you also have players talking about stuff more too. Players wouldn't do podcasts like 7 years ago. That wasn't a thing. And you have players talking all over the place now, and sharing their thoughts and opinions and stuff. So I think it's just kind of opened up the ability. People didn't care. Like the Fed had no online presence before, and then people start talking about it. So I think that's just kind of been the internet age has opened up stuff, and people have realized there's more stuff to pay attention to that might be, you get bored of NHL stuff. Sometimes it's oversaturated or just too corp.
Yeah, it's nice when you hit that, like in the month of February when it's like, oh, it's a random Monday and the Beanpot final is on. That's always great to tune into instead of, Flames cracking at 10 p.m. on a Monday night. But one of the other things I think that's contributed to the success of college hockey in the States recently and the popularity is just the fact that ESPN Plus is covering all of these games. I think that's made such a huge difference because it puts it in front of so many more people than it ordinarily would if it was just on, if it's Michigan State, Minnesota, and it's on Big Ten. I mean, unless you live in the Midwest, you probably don't have that channel.
Yeah, and the Fed did the same thing. So the Fed put all their games on YouTube straight up. And I know
That's a
people who
great
don't live
idea.
in the Fed cities, who live in a different spot that watch them. Like it's just the accessibility to it definitely helped. You look at the success of the PWHL, again, very accessible content. You could watch the games basically wherever. That helps a lot. And you have players putting highlight content out, or you have all of the women's college hockey players who make like great TikTok videos. Like I'm trying to think of one off the bat right now, but I'm speaking on names. But they like you can just get an inside look as to how things are, and they create so much quality content with it that it's just become very accessible for people, and people like feeling like they're involved or like have a relationship with the players and stuff like that. So social media's kind of allowed people to like have that.
Yeah, absolutely. We had Emily Rickwood on the show. I think
Mhm.
it was last year or a year or two ago, and that was when she was playing over in Sweden. Now she's playing over in China, and just, I mean, and this is just from Instagram, but just seeing like her stories about like what like the day-to-day life for their team is like, I think is insanely cool.
Yeah, no, I like that stuff, and that you learn things about different spots, especially with like Europe and stuff like that. There's things that happen there that are different, and players going over there, they kind of share that stuff. It's cool to see.
I'm going to switch it over real quick for my last question for you over to NHL action because it's something we ask everybody who comes on the show basically before the new year just to kind of give a take that we'll see how it ages. But do you have any thoughts on a cup final matchup? And then secondly, because you're dialed into all the minor leagues and prospects so much, I'm wondering what you're thinking about maybe a Calder Trophy winner given some of Celebrini's injuries so far this year.
Yeah, it's very interesting if you're going to look at the Stanley Cup because you got some teams that have done things differently. So you have teams that are very top heavy, and then you have teams like Dallas, who Dallas has a lot of depth and a lot of scoring quality depth players. So I kind of lean to the Dallas side. If they're just able to stay consistent, which they weren't in the playoffs last year, if they're able to stay consistent and they can afford injuries, I think they are in a fantastic spot. And they're also in a spot where if like something's not working, they can change the lineup. And you're not slotting in a guy who 60% of the time isn't getting praying that 40 is what you're going to need at the time. So I like Dallas. I'm a Leafs guy, and I don't want to say necessarily that the Leafs can make it there. Like the record's decent, and they have a new coach who isn't Sheldon Keefe, who I wasn't a fan of with the way his coaching style and also just like the way the team played. But maybe Toronto can be getting at that spot. It's just a matter of putting the lineup together. Berube's kind of trying to beat a lot of bad habits out of the team. So if they're going to struggle a little bit at this time of year, usually that's a better time to struggle versus near the end. But yeah, maybe Toronto. in Dallas in the final. But if it's not Toronto, you've got some teams who are just consistently stacked and are a problem. Florida again can be a problem. Any team that's won the cup before, they have a span of a few years where they have the experience, and also then they don't deal with the nerves. And I think that's very beneficial. So yeah, you could look at any, like the Florida teams could potentially do something nice. It's just once the play starts, standings don't necessarily matter. And Calder pick, I actually don't have one right now, so I couldn't tell you who I think is going to win it. Celebrini, his injury, is it supposed to be even that bad? Like,
I feel
No.
like it might be one of those things where it's like in 2 weeks, out for 2 days, in for 2 weeks, out for 2 days. But it seems like he was able to bounce back from it pretty quickly.
yeah, I had Bedard last year, and it was a riskier pick. I think it was like plus 140, and I went, whatever, I'll lay this.
Yeah.
Still won, thank God. But that market's good. It's very interesting to see each year how teams deal with the prospects. So the interesting thing with Celebrini, and I'll keep this quick, is he got injured, but he's also playing on a team that's really bad. So it makes you wonder just a little bit if this was the best spot for his development because the Sharks team isn't good. They're going to lose a lot of games. They're projected to not get very many points. You have to hope that he has the character to put up with that much adversity at the start. But Connor Bedard, similar position. You felt like you had to play him, and it did work out. But he also then got hurt. So I think the NHL has to try and make better sense of how some of these teams are themselves when they tank so bad, but then they have to put that prospect in right away. Is it the best move to make necessarily for that player's development and for your team as a whole? Because you knew the Sharks tanked last year. So if is it the best situation, or is ending up with the number 2 pick because you didn't completely blow up your roster a better position? It's interesting to say. Let's just hope he's healthy and plays throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing, obviously, for San Jose, for him, and then of course the league, because you want your newest, pride and joy to be on display for the world to see.
I think I'm good, Nick. If you got anything else you want to ask.
No, I think that wraps it up. Babs, thanks so much once again. We
Mhm.
really appreciate it, and we'll have to do it again sometime soon.
Yep. Awesome, guys. Appreciate it.
Huge thanks to Babs for joining us. I really enjoyed that interview and would love to have him back on, maybe a little deeper into the college hockey season. I think that'd be a banger episode.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome. Loved his insight on the NCAA CHL stuff. I think that's so interesting. And like he said, I think there's definitely some legislation or some, nomenclature that needs to be put into place for how the, transferring or the swapping between, or, we talked about the drafted players things, how that's all going to shake out.
Well, we're going to dive into the NHL news, but before we do, I know Nick has a word from our friends over at Game Time.
Yes, I do. You guys know there's nothing like watching hockey live, the chill of the ice, the sound of the puck, and screaming for your favorite team. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. I got my Caps tickets for this week on Game Time, and now you can too. Game Time's deals make it easier to find the best prices on the best seats, and you can even see a panoramic view from your seats before you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
Nick, give me a little like we're in the huddle. Game time. Like
Game
you gotta
time.
yeah, there it is. Needed it. Need a little emotion to end that. I
Yeah,
love it. Yeah, it's good for the people. Gets them
there
all
we
juiced
go.
up. All right. Well, for the third, maybe fourth, I don't know, however many weeks we are into the season, for the third show in a row, we'll say we are talking about the best team in the NHL, the Winnipeg freaking Jets. They take down the Dallas Stars 4-1 on Saturday. That was a big boy matchup, and they set an NHL record with 14 wins in their first 15 games, the best start to an NHL season through 15 games in history. That is absolutely crazy. And they are currently taking on the New York Rangers as we are recording this. I believe that game is 1-1 after the first period. Another big boy matchup.
It's kind of wild. I was listening to a podcast with my coworker in the car earlier about like how the Cleveland Cavaliers are off to a really hot start in the NBA right now. They're the only undefeated team left. And I heard them say that the record in the NBA, I think, is like 24-0 or some shit like that from Golden State one year. And it's just funny to me, like how the record for the NHL is 10 less than that because it's just on any given night in the NHL, anyone can beat each other. It's hard. It's way harder for a team to dominate like that than it is in the NBA. But yeah, I was thinking about that earlier. The Jets compared to like what the Cavs are doing now and what Golden State did however long ago that was.
Yeah, it's interesting. That was brought up on ESPN on multiple talk shows yesterday. They were debating what's more impressive, the Jets or the Cavs. And shockingly, 90% of the people said the Cavs. So par for the course, but it is nuts. I think, especially when you get into like hockey where games can go to overtime. It's a stick sport. Stuff can go off sticks, shins, skates, butts, helmets, you just never know what's going to happen. But I think you put it beautifully. Night in, night out, anyone can beat anyone.
There's really not a whole lot that we're going to add here. I mean, we've talked about them 3 weeks in a row. We've given the analysis. Not much has changed. I'm just going to reemphasize what I said last week, and I'll say it again. If you're betting, or if somehow these guys are available in your fantasy league, which I don't think they are at this point, but Cole Perfetti and Nemestikov, these guys are lighting it up. Probably two of the best pickups I had in fantasy, and they are carrying me lately. That team's got a lot of depth, man.
Yeah.
Morrissey also gets a point like every night. He's got like 15 assists or something like that. So
Plus, if you're going to go the betting route, I mean, Kyle Connor shots on goal, Kyle
yeah.
Connor goals, just, I mean, you might have one off night out of three, but you're going to do pretty
Mhm.
well.
Yep. The wagon peg Jets.
There you go.
I like that one. So we'll see how they fare in New York. It's actually pretty interesting. The Rangers favored in that game. I guess I'm not too shocked by that, given they're at home, but I'm curious to see how they handle a red hot Winnipeg team. That's probably the best goaltending matchup you could draw up, Igor and Hellebuck. So good matchup. All right, we're gonna move on to the trade news. The Seattle Kraken, they reacquire Daniel Sprong in a trade with the Canucks. Sprong spent portions of 2 seasons with the Kraken. I think his last one was in the 21-22 season. And he's wearing jersey number 91, who was last worn by Daniel Sprong, which I saw making its way on Twitter, and people were having a good little chuckle at that.
Yeah, it's interesting that he went back so quick. I feel like you don't really see trades 9 games into a season all that often. The fact that he only played 9 games with the Canucks is kind of weird, but you know, like you said, this guy was there for 2 years and arguably two of the best years of his career. What I think is most interesting about this trade is, we know Jessica Campbell has done great things with that Kraken power play, is how you implement a guy with a shot like Daniel Sprong on that Seattle Kraken power play, because whether it's PP1 or PP2, I don't think you can keep this guy when he's got a weapon like that out of either of those lineups.
I can't make sense of this because unless this guy is just like the biggest locker room cancer of all time, I can't figure out why he gets moved so much. Like I know he can be streaky and I know he's gone through, periods where he needs to be healthy scratched for, however long, but like you look at his last couple of years, 23, 24 last season, plays 76 games with the Red Wings, 18 goals, 25 assists, 43 points. That's an excellent season for a guy like him. The year before, 66 games with the Kraken, 21 goals, 25 assists. That's 2 really good years in a row. Then he's in Vancouver for just 9 games. He gets a goal and 2 assists. It's not like he was, god awful or anything. I don't know. I just don't get it.
Yeah, it is interesting. I don't remember exactly when this was. I know it was when he was in Detroit, but I think there was one off ice incident where he like assaulted that IndyCar driver in a bar in Detroit or something like that. But yeah, it's something doesn't add up. I understand what you're saying.
Weird. It's like not quite good enough to be a PP1 on most teams, and he's not good enough to be a penalty killer. So he's always that weird, there's always like that two or three guys on the roster who
Yeah, I
never
guess
play
that's fair. He's not
special
like a
teams.
super specialty guy. It's really just like third line minutes, maybe second line if he's hot or something like that. But
Shoot the
yeah,
puck.
I think
hey,
he's
kind of
played
an
on
interesting guy.
6 teams now.
That sounds
Uh,
right. He started with the Penguins, then he went to Anaheim, then the
Right.
Caps, then the
six
Kraken,
teams, yeah.
Detroit, Vancouver. Yeah, now back to Seattle.
6 teams. Wow. That went quick. Um,
Born in the Netherlands too. Fun
Yep.
fact.
Everyone forgets.
he's one of those few players. Well, I shouldn't say few, but he's one of those players who played for the Caps and the Penguins. And another guy who has now done that is Lars Eller. This just came over the news before we started recording that the Capitals have reacquired Lars Eller from the Penguins for a third round pick in 27 and a fifth round pick in 25. I'm gonna say we're gonna save our um what's the word? Diagnosis for this in the discussion portion of the episode because we've got a lot to talk about. So, breaking the news there, we'll dissect it a little later on. We have a little bit of suspension news. Might be our first one of the year. I can't remember.
Believe it
Uh,
is.
yeah, LA Kings Tanner Jeannot gets a 3-game sussy for an illegal check to the head on Brock Besser. Jeannot did get a match penalty, and Besser is out indefinitely, which sucks for the Canucks because he's currently leading the team in goals. He has 6 of them so far. So I don't know if you guys got the chance to see this. My opinion, pretty brutal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm honestly
r
surprised it didn't get 5.
really tough break for the Canucks too. I will say it's not one of those cases, at least in my opinion. I don't think he like swung his elbow out or anything. It was his shoulder, but it definitely hit him directly in the head. Did look like he kind of came upward a little bit. I don't know if he left his feet fully, but he seemed to kind of drive upward, and principal point of contact was definitely the head. So it's the right call.
I agree. A little surprised it wasn't 5. Also, I hate saying this because usually I hate when people say this, but pretty unnecessary hit. Like,
Yeah,
kind of no reason to do that.
yeah. And no reason to do that at this point in the season. Like if you're fighting for a playoff spot, I understand. If you're in the playoffs, totally get it, but not now.
Yeah, random as hell. And also, it's just one of those blindside center ice hits where it's like, guys super vulnerable, nothing to, break his fall. That's always where like a hospital pass occurs too, where
Yes.
you're not looking in the right direction and tough break.
So with that, we move on to the injury news. Anthony Mantha done for the year, tore his ACL. Absolutely brutal news for Mantha.
Feel bad for that guy.
Yeah, that's really tough.
Had a great start to the year in
Yeah.
Calgary. Things were looking great. And, I thought he did pretty well with Vegas when he ended up going there. And um, yeah, just
Yeah,
brutal
that's
news.
just a dude who seems to just never be able to catch a break. You got to feel for him.
Yeah, Nick, I think through like the first 5 games, he had a pretty good stat line for the Flames and
Yeah.
maybe
He had a sweet breakaway goal in like the first or second game for the Flames, and
mhm.
at least a couple more points after that.
I think it was against Vancouver on Shelovs. He kind of like snuck it
Hmm.
5 hole, but Jamie Drysdale placed on IR for upper body. Penguins have placed forward Kevin Hayes on IR for upper body. Not sure much how longer he's going to be a Penguin. Cody Glass, concussion. That sucks. Cody's actually been playing some good hockey for the Pens. And then the annual ritual, Max Pacioretty. He is also on IR, lower body. So the Leafs end up losing out on him.
Patches is starting to remind me of Oshie. It's like really talented player, great legacy, will always be remembered in the game for all his contributions. But at a certain point, man, like you gotta take care of your body. Like I don't know obviously what the situation this time is, but what he's had 2 Achilles things and concussions and
I just
lots of different stuff over the years. It's
I'm
it's
still not over the turnbuckle hit, man. Like that, I still see
uh-huh.
that one.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That was the real bad one ages ago.
Right.
And last injury update, Tage Thompson. He left Monday's game against the Montreal Canadiens with a lower body injury and did not return. That is the Sabres' top scorer. That's a big scare if you're a Buffalo fan. I don't know if they've given out the official injury or timeline yet. I haven't seen anything, but they won 3 games in a row, and then they gave up a touchdown to Montreal. So I don't know what that team does.
I think I saw that they actually pulled him out of the game as a precautionary measure because they found out you had bet him to score 2 goals and he already had one. And so they were like, we just want to make sure that Harry doesn't hit his bet. So
Exactly.
let's just play it safe and get him out of here.
Plus 800 for 2 goals. He scores the first one in the first period. I'm like, oh, empty net or power play time. We're cooking. He leaves the game, of course. So I had to keep myself entertained at work somehow.
In all seriousness, that does suck for Buffalo. Hope Tage is okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that, obviously we don't know the duration of that one yet. I think Buffalo fans probably wanted them to start a little bit better than they have started this year. I think you could probably say the same about Sens fans and Wings fans. So once again, here we are. But yeah, hopefully he's not out too long for the sake of the Sabres and their fans who have just had to suffer and suffer for years.
Just looked it up. He's still being evaluated as of Tuesday when we're recording this. So, of course, it'll drop probably the day after this comes out. But we're going to move on to the 2024 Hockey Hall of Fame class was announced here. I'll read through the names, and then if you guys have any thoughts you want to add, feel free. But starting off with the builders, we've got Colin Campbell and David Poyle. And then for the players, we've got Natalie Darwitz, Pavel Datsuk, Jeremy Roenick, Shea Weber, and Chrissy Wendell Pohl. I get that last name right? Pohl, right?
Yeah, you got it.
So any
Pretty
thoughts on this?
sweet list here, guys. Definitely, I don't think you can really point to anyone on this list and say they don't deserve it. Of course, they absolutely do. Natalie Darwitz, I mean, NCAA champion, 3-time Olympian for the Americans. I remember watching her growing up, but for me, the big one on here is Datsuk. I feel like, for kids that were around my age, around your guys' age, this guy was the highlight machine. Before there was, Sid and Ovi, before there was McDavid, before there was 30 different players trying to Michigan in a regular season game. This was the wizard that everyone wanted to handle the puck like. He's just unbelievable.
Kind of I would say this guy paved the way for like hands, if that makes sense. Like there was not a lot of guys doing the kind of trickster shit, like you said, wizard, magician, whatever you want to call him. He was a unicorn in a lot of ways. I know there were dudes that, came before him that, could stick handle well and shoot the puck and everything, but I don't think anybody had the puck on a string quite like that guy until he came into the league.
It was almost like when the puck was on your stick, he still had it on a string because he could take it from you at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the highlights always are what people think of for Datsuk, but so good defensively. So
Yes.
one of the best two ways of all time. Figured I would also add this little tidbit. So for those wondering, next year there are 4 players that a lot of people are thinking are a lock: Chara, Carey Price, Joe Thornton, and Duncan Keith. Eric Stahl and Ryan Getzlaff are also 2 names that are being thrown in there. So we'll see.
I think I heard somebody talking about maybe Spessa even as well.
Definitely not as a builder because he's helping Kyle Dubas ruin the Penguins. But other than that, yeah, I agree. Sure, why not?
Nice.
In case people can't tell, I'm really revved up about the
We'll get there. Hold your horses.
Yeah.
the
Keith,
Metro Division.
Duncan Keith is a lock. I would literally bet like both my arms and my legs on that.
Yeah,
I think
that's a
all
good
the
one.
4. All the 4 I named probably a lock. But
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a great class this year for sure. David Poyle, Capitals legend, Predators legend, done so much for the game. Roenick, what can you say about that guy? I mean, just freaking nails as they come, basically. American hockey hero. Yeah, great list.
Saw some people on Twitter saying, is Shea Weber a Hall of Famer? I was a little surprised to see that. Maybe youngsters, I don't know.
I think if you win 2 gold medals, you should be considered a Hall of Famer. I know he didn't win a Stanley Cup, but he was one of the 2 best defensemen in the NHL for basically 10 years.
Yeah. And I know it's like less about like your minor league stuff, but he was a hell of a freaking player for the Admirals before the Preds too. Um, and what Memorial Cup champion as well.
2 times a dub winner. I mean,
Yep.
that stuff
Yeah.
matters to that
No,
committee.
he for sure it matters, and I think he deserves it.
Yeah, I would agree. One of
He
those
also
OG Nashville
shot the
Predators.
puck through the net at the Olympics. So
Yeah, if nothing else, he might just deserve it for literally like having just a lumberjack of a shot. Just
yeah,
that guy, like nobody wanted to block that shot
yeah,
ever.
You talk about nails, like just nails. Shea Weber's
yeah.
nail. He reminds me of that SpongeBob guy who's like
Yep.
the bouncer for Weenie Hut Jr. And he's
He
like,
eats nails
"How's
for
the rough
breakfast
are you?" It's just you're walking into the
without
Predators,
any milk.
Yeah, exactly.
just walking into the Predators locker room. It's the first thing he asks you.
Welcome to the Hall of Fame. How tough are you?
I
First
love it.
class salty spittoon.
Right.
Oh yeah, all world.
Oh yeah.
Uh, all right. Well, we're gonna do a little Metro Division panic index, but before we do, I know Mac has a word from our friends over at DraftKings.
That's right. The quest for the Stanley Cup has begun. The puck has dropped on the 24-25 season. Get in on all the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sports app, select your team, place your first bet. And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
All right. We are going to dissect the Metropolitan Division and figure out which teams need to panic. Oops. And which teams don't need to panic. We're going to rate it on a scale from 1 to 10. What do you say? 10 is like hit the button, Mayday, Mayday, and then 1 is like pina
10 is,
colada on the beach.
yeah, exactly. 10 is like my plane is going down, my ship's underwater, like you're fucked.
Okay. Let's start with the New Jersey Devils. How are we feeling on a panic index? We'll start with you, Mac.
You said 10, they're in good shape. 1 is you're screwed.
No. Opposite.
Okay. Okay. I will give the Devils, see, they're 10, 6, and 2. Second place right now, 22 points. I'll go with I don't know if they're drinking a pina colada in my opinion, but I'll give them like they're on like their third Corona and they're feeling nice right now. They're probably at like maybe a 3 or 4.
Okay. Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. Could still fall apart, but like not a
Yes.
lock.
Yes. Like I'm not totally convinced, but like for now, yeah, have another Corona.
I think they're like a 3. I think a 3 is fair. Like they're cruising down the highway and they know that there's people behind them that are trying to catch up. So they're constantly looking in their mirror, being like, all right, are we still okay? How close are those Rangers getting? But we're fine. We're cruising right now. We're in the left lane. No Priuses in front of us. We're good.
I think what helps me keep it as low as a 3 there too is like the problems that we've seen this team have in recent years are not as likely to occur now. Like the goaltending thing, I feel a lot better about where they're at with Markstrom than I do if they just had like, Akira Schmid and he's played a couple good games or something like that.
I will I'll go with 2. I'll go with 2. They've looked pretty good. I think like Max said, the problems they had, they addressed. Solid goal differential, plus 13. They've scored the most goals in the division. I think this is right where you want to be if you're New Jersey. Maybe you would want a little bit of a better record, but you can't really complain at this point.
Yeah.
All right. The Carolina Hurricanes. Nick, we'll start with you on this one.
I'm gonna give these guys a 2. They're sitting pretty comfortable right now. I'm not gonna say pina colada on a beach, but they're in their backyard in a lawn chair with a beer because it's North Carolina. So let's be real.
Garage beers.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to. I'm not gonna lie. I want to give them a 4, but I can't. I'm gonna give them a 3. Let me explain why I want to give them a 4. I know they're 11-3-0. That's excellent. I know they're 9-1-0 in their last 10. Also great. Scored a lot of goals, but the goaltending situation is not. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Freddie Anderson. I called it every year. Freddie Anderson gets hurt. He can't keep getting away with this.
He's the new Robin Lehner, man.
He basically is. And I know Kochetkov has played really well. But I just foresee that becoming an issue. And so that's why I think, like, to use your highway analogy, yeah, they're way ahead of the pack, but they only have like half a tank. Like, it's gonna run out at some point.
Whoa.
You know?
I'll I don't know. Like, I guess a 3 because we knew they'd be, well, can't speak for everybody. I thought they'd be a playoff team. I thought they'd be good. They're definitely going to make the playoffs. Nate just looks incredible. That turned
Yes,
out
he
well.
does. Also, Jarvis is hurt right now. I don't know how serious that is, but it's just something to keep in mind.
Right. But I agree. The goaltending come playoff time, I have a funny feeling that's going to come up and bite him in the ass again. So we'll see. But for right now, big win in Vegas to slay that undefeated home streak for the Knights. So I
They
think
beat the
Carolina's
crap out of him, didn't they?
it's like 6-2, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll give Carolina like a 3. It would be a 2 if they had addressed goaltending in the offseason. I'm not sold on it.
Exactly.
That's a good way to put it. Let me ask you guys one more thing about Carolina. Do they have a superstar?
I mean,
Like, I guess Aho is the closest thing.
I'd say Aho's a super. I'd say Aho okay, superstar. Hmm.
Not
They've got
really.
no. I
I
guess
say no.
I wouldn't say a superstar, but they've got a lot of star players.
Yeah. They've got like star power. It's more of like a group of good players.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's see what Jackson Blake can do too. I've seen some highlights so far. I'm not dialed into every game, but 4 goals already through 14 games. Was up for the Hobie Baker last year too, wasn't he? Was he one of the 3 finalists?
He was, I think, right?
Yeah, I think,
or at least close.
Yeah, maybe close. I can't remember, but yeah, he's looked good so far. All right, the Washington Capitals. Mac, we'll start with you.
Harry will start with you.
Oh, panic index for the Caps. Ugh. Ugh. I don't want to go. Can I skip? Can't skip.
No.
I will give the Capitals a 3. They've played very well. They look good. Logan Thompson looks unbelievable. He probably is going to make Team Canada for the Four Nations tournament, so that's good for him. Also, can we just say this? This is my favorite time of year because you see all the stats on Twitter where it's like so and so is on pace for blah 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 whatever. It's like Dylan Strome's on pace for 130 points, and I'm like, sure, fine, buy that if you want. They look good, and to be honest, I think they're overperforming a little bit, so like that even makes it better because they're out of the gate hotter than I thought they would be. So yeah, I think in terms of panicking, probably a 3, and I think Carberry's probably gonna end up winning the fucking Jack Adams. I hate my life.
Well said. Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I'm a 3. I'm like, I'm happy with what I'm seeing. I am fully aware of how long an NHL season is. been through a couple 2-3 of these before with
Yeah.
this team, and I love them to death. But yeah, 3 is where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair, especially because I think a lot of the dudes who are playing really well will eventually, I'm not going to say they'll fall off, but they'll probably come back down to earth somewhat. And I'm sure we'll peter out a little bit. I do think this is a good strong team, playoff team, but I do think like we'll come back down to earth a little bit at some point.
Please remind me, because we're going to talk about the Caps and the Penguins a little more after we do this panic index thing. Please remind me to talk to you guys about the Capitals' upcoming schedule. I want to make sure we talk about that.
Yeah.
All right, Rangers. Nick.
I'm going to put the Rangers at a 5, and here's why.
Oh.
They came into this season, I think, or Rangers fans came into this season kind of expecting, with some of the offseason moves they made, they're like, hey, this division's ours. We're just going to run away with this thing. And Carolina and New Jersey can try and keep up, but probably not going to happen. And I think right out of the gate, they were a little bit slow to start, which is understandable. I think Igor's had 1 or 2 games where he has not looked good at all, most notably against the Caps, where his goalie leg pads just turned into pinball paddles that he threw pucks at Caps forwards. But yeah, I'm going to put them at a 5. And I think it's because they're not as comfortable as they want to be right now.
I think that's fair. I think I'll put them at a 4, but for the same reasons as you're saying. In the standings, they're pretty much neck and neck with the Caps right now, and not just in like points, but like also in like goal differential, that sort of thing. And so I think for that reason, they would like to be higher. I think they've also scored 10 fewer goals than the Capitals have, which I don't think they'd be satisfied with that if you told them that before the season, that they'd be at that point right now. However, I'm going 4 instead of 5 because they've also, as of right this second, played less games than any other team in the Metro. So I do think they have room to figure that out and be right where they want to be.
I feel like people think that I like the Rangers. I will tell you right now I promise you that is not the case. But I do think they're a really, really good team, and it just feels like the past 2 years they've been due. I think they're due again this year. I'm not worried about the Rags at all, honestly. I guess I'll go 2 because I don't think they're sipping pina coladas, but like I don't think they care about winning the division. They won the freaking President's Trophy last year, and that got them a big old nothing burger by the end of the playoffs. So 9-3-1, solid. They've allowed the least amount of goals in the division. Good defense, good goalie. I'm not worried about the Rags. They're right where they need to be. It's early season still. It's kind of like who's like a team that's known to like sleep at the beginning, but it's going to come at some point.
The Pittsburgh Penguins.
Well, that's the old. That's the old.
This year does feel a little different though, huh?
This year the alarm clock batteries ran out and they're still asleep.
We're not on the Penguins yet.
Okay.
Let's go to the New York Islanders. What are we thinking? Nick, we'll start with you.
Someone left this team on like the repeat 1 setting because like every season they've had since going to the conference finals against who was that? Tampa.
Yeah, I think so.
During the Mickey Mouse year. That was, yeah. So I don't know. Does anyone know what's going on with the Islanders? I feel like their points percentage being exactly at like 500 is exactly what I would expect for this team at this point in the year. So I'm just going to say 4. They're probably a little bit stressed that they could be doing better, but not higher because they know that they're not going to blow anyone away stats wise unless it's in block shots or, I don't know, responsible face-offs in defensive zones.
I'm going to go ahead and say, well, I wanted to say 6, but I'm going to say 5 because I think the Caps are above them in a big way, not in a big way, but like eye test wise, the Caps
they're playing a lot better.
Yes, exactly. And that they wouldn't have wanted to hear before the season started. However, they would have been pleasantly surprised to hear that the Penguins were beneath them. So it kind of cancels out in the Metro chase. However, they've got injury problems. They've always got some goal scoring problems. Um, it does feel like same old, same old. I don't know that there's anything. I don't think there's any wow factor about this team right now. And I just don't see anything that great happening to them this year.
Lowest goals for in the division by a lot, which is not a huge surprise, but not great.
39 goals through 15 games this year. I I will give them a 6. And here's why. It is literally the same story as always. They can't score. They've got two good goalies, but like for some reason, one of them is always off, it seems, in the last like year or so. Barzell's hurt. Duclair's hurt. I mean, do they make
Helen
playoffs?
Dursley is still not doing anything to my knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, if they make playoffs, like cool, but they're
But Matt
getting
Martin's
bounced.
back,
But Matt Martin's back, so
Okay, you're right. They're sipping pina coladas.
right?
shit.
And
Might have
he
to change the
was, and then
line.
he's like, "Fuck, I gotta go play hockey
You're
again."
right. He definitely was.
I'm going 6 because nothing's changed. Like I just don't personally, I'm
I
just
think
gonna
it's
say
fair.
this. I'm gonna get flamed for this. I know I'm gonna get flamed for this, and I take it. On paper, right now, I think Columbus is the only team worse than them. Like there's just nothing about them on paper that screams anything to me. I don't know. It's just
Well,
I
that's
don't
why I
know if
said like
I
there's just I don't know if I agree with that, but I can confidently say nothing spectacular is happening to this team this year.
Here's a
agreed.
comparison I'll throw at you guys, and Harry, this might take some of the heat off of you. Are the New York Islanders just the Dallas Cowboys of the NHL? They were really good in the 80s and won like 4 championships, and they've kind of got a quirky owner, GM, Jerry
Yeah.
Jones, Lou Lamoriello, and they just refuse to change and expect it to get better every year, and it just doesn't.
It's like a Cowboys that no one wants to watch.
Yeah, exactly. So the Cowboys.
So the
Well,
Cowboys, yeah.
well, I enjoy watching them suffer. I mean, I enjoy watching the Islanders suffer, but I can just tell you, I mean, the Islanders are the last team that I want to put on my television. Truthfully,
Agreed.
I'm sorry. And I think the Islanders fans are great. They got a great crowd. They give it to
Yeah.
people. We
Yeah.
know like Dean and all them. Like I love them, but it's just
Mhm.
don't don't like your team. Like there's
If I
nothing wrong
it's
with it.
like if I wanted to watch 2000s hockey, I would just go watch a 2000s hockey game that's, 2 to
Yeah.
1, but
You know how you asked if Carolina has a superstar? Does
yeah,
do the
oh
Islanders?
man,
I don't think so.
it's a
Sorry.
good point.
Just saying. All right, we'll move on. Don't make me go first. I feel like I should definitely go last for this. I want to hear what you guys say. The Penguins. Mac, tee it off.
So I want to tread lightly because I've done this before in years past where I'm like, oh my God, they're off to such a bad start. This is the year they finally just suck the whole year. I don't think that's fully going to happen. I'm sure they will claw their way to somewhat of a respectable year. However, something feels different about this year than past years. I also do think that if it doesn't get better like very soon, I do think it's realistic they could straight up blow it up like in the middle of the year, or fire the coach. See, I want them to blow it up because if they fire the coach, they're going to hire somebody and they're going to win like 18 out of 20 and they're going to be right back in it. So I want them to make the wrong move, which is just blowing the whole thing up, trading everybody, admitting defeat, going for a lottery pick. See you next year. That's what I'm banking on. In general, though, I'm going to give this team a 7. I do think they're in trouble.
I think that's a great way to put it. I honestly was going to say exactly the same thing. It's a 7 for me. I would love to tell you it's an 11 and that this thing is just a dumpster fire, but like Max said, I've seen this movie before. I've watched the St. Louis Blues be in dead last place in January in the NHL and then win the Stanley Cup in the same year. And that was the Blues, whereas the Penguins, they could just win the Stanley Cup from anywhere. So, not going to go ahead and like totally count them out yet. But Mac, I think the point you make that's the best here is if it doesn't get better soon, they are really, really screwed. And at what point, if it doesn't get better soon, do you just say, what draft pick are we going for here?
9. 9. If you're talking about them trying to compete and make the playoffs, 9. If you're talking about them trying to tank, 1. Um, but we're talking about them trying to win because that's what they were told they were going to try to do this year. I'm not going to go too
Well,
deep yet. We'll
we
save that.
we all know this team can tank.
We all know the team can tank. We all know the team can
Boom,
tank.
got
I'd
him.
be fine tanking. Fuck this team. Sorry. Um, I'll talk more about them in a few moments here, but I'd say it's a good solid 9. The Blue Jackets, Nick.
Um, I don't know, like a 2 or a 3. I feel like with everything going on with Columbus this year, their fans probably didn't expect much. Coaching staff probably didn't expect much, and you feel for the guys in that locker room because they've probably been through so much. So I think with where they're at right now, I'd probably say a 3. I don't really think they're panicking all that much.
I would agree. I think they're trying to just come to the rink, play hockey, do their job, stay loose as can be. No expectations. Try to have fun, right? That's probably the attitude in that locker room. So, yeah, probably. I honestly 1 or 2. There's no panic involved. It's expected.
I think for them, they probably just want to keep Werenski healthy this year. That's probably the main thing they're focused on.
Give them a 1. They've actually, I don't know if you guys have caught any CBJ games. They're competing. Like a lot of these games are
For sure,
close.
they'll spoil some teams all year long, no doubt.
They're gritty. If it makes them feel any better, the Penguins have a worse points percentage in the division, so therefore you are not last in that category. But yeah, I think CBJ's playing hard, and I want to give a shout out to I'm gonna fuck this name up. Chikhanov.
Chinikov?
Chinikov. Igor Chinikov. He rocks. Shout out Cody Pucks. He bets him like every night and hits it somehow. It's fucking insane.
Yeah, they do
Um,
have a couple guys who can sort of light it up out of nowhere. I know Boone Jenner's hurt. We all know what he means to that team and that program. So hopefully, I think he's supposed to come back in like March, maybe. That's the estimate. I know it's a while.
short.
So don't quote me on that, but I know it's not in 2024. Let's put it that way.
Really interested to hear the rating for the last team in the Metro, the Philadelphia Flyers. You want me to go first?
Yeah.
I feel like the Flyers are. I feel like I want to give them a 5. You know what? I will give them a 5. It's right in the middle. I'm not really sure what to make of them yet. I think a lot of people thought they were going to regress this year. Um, I personally didn't necessarily think that. I thought they'd kind of be around the same that they were last year, fringe playoff team on that bubble looking to get in the wild card. And they added Mitchkov in so like that's a great add for them. I don't know. 5. Like I feel like they want to make the playoffs. I think that's the goal for this squad. They're not like a lottery team, in my opinion. Some people think that.
I will mostly agree with you. I'm going to give him a 6. I do think Mitchkov has proved that he can be a game breaker. This team has been missing a game breaking player like that, and he clearly can come and have an effect on a game immediately. However, if you've been listening to this podcast, you know what my big thing that I'm always critical about teams is they don't have a goalie. I'm sorry, Samuel Ersan cannot be the guy. He's proved he cannot be the guy. Last night they played the Sharks, led them 3-0, blew the entire lead, ended up winning in a shootout. But that to me is kind of the epitome of like what this season is like flipping a coin and maybe getting 2 points, basically.
It's a great way to put it. And you nailed it. It's the goaltending. I mean, second worst goal differential in this division. Um, I feel like there was so much hype around them. Maybe it was just from Flyers fans in the offseason, but all you heard was, oh my God, we only missed the playoffs by a couple of points. Had, that game against the Caps got better. Of course, we would have done better than the Caps did against the Rangers, blah, blah, blah. And then it went straight into Mitchkov, which dude's looked unreal at times. He's also looked like a liability at times, but I don't really fault him for that because he's a young player who just came over to the NHL. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
The end all be all for them is the same problem this team has had basically since Bernie Parent left in the 70s, with that there's no one there to stop the fucking puck. Like,
I love when I criticize their goaltending. Like, Flyers fans love to be like, "Whoa, what did you want?" Like, that's not our fault that we had this whole situation happen with Carter Hart. I'm like, look, I'm not talking about Carter Hart. He sucked too. He was terrible.
you
Don't
guys benched
Wasn't
him.
good.
It didn't matter.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I don't know why they're like, well, if we had Hart, this wouldn't be a problem. No, it'd be a problem. He was bad.
Yeah.
He had like
I
one good year, not a good goalie.
Right.
definitely agree with
I
that.
mean, answer me this. Who was the Flyers goalie when they went to the Stanley Cup Finals against the Blackhawks?
Michael Leighton, right?
There you go.
Yeah, no, they've never. You're dead right about the Bernie Perron thing. Like what? Robert Esch, Hextall,
Legend.
we
Bernie
don't say that one name on this show. We don't say that
All
ever.
right, all right.
All right, we're gonna dive a little deeper into the Caps Pens. Obviously, a little State of the Union. Myself being the Pens fan, the other two being the Caps fans. We'll start off with the Pens. There's so much going on online, and it's pissing me off, to be quite frank. I think there's a lot of rumors that are being started that I don't particularly think are true. So let's just clear the air. Give me the soapbox for a
Educate the
second.
people, Harry. Tell them
All
how
right.
it is.
So this is the problem. This team doesn't know what direction it wants to go. And for anyone blaming Kyle Dubas for what's going on, I cannot blame him. And the reason is because he is being given an impossible task. He is being asked to retool or stockpile picks or whatever term you want to use to get younger. But then on the other hand, the fucking owner of Fenway Sports Group that Turk has ranted about all the time, John W. Henry, who looks exactly like his name sounds, some old salt and pepper British guy, told told Dubas, we are extending Sid and we are gonna try to win. So how do you try to win while also retool? Like it just doesn't match, right? And then today the big news comes over. I think it was like Taylor Haas, is that her name? I can't remember. She broke in one of her articles that everyone is available for trade besides 87. And that spread like wildfire. And everyone's like, oh my God. Oh my God, Gino's not going to retire a Penguin. The big three's getting broken up. Carlson sucks. I'm just going to say, and I verified this just now, so I know this is true. All those guys have full no move clauses. So if they don't want to go, they're not going. And if they do want to go, we are going to get shafted because they're going to pick where they're going to want to go, and we'll have no leverage in the trade. So
No,
we're
you're going to have
stuck.
to eat like 75% of that contract. It's
Yeah.
not going to be half.
It's a
gonna-
bad situation.
Yeah.
We are incredibly stuck.
I do want to give Penguins fans, that listen to this a little peace of mind here, because I know everyone went a little bit crazy when Biz tweets out that Crosby should go to the Avs. Let's just kill that now. We know Sidney Crosby is never leaving the Pittsburgh Penguins. Also, Kyle Dubas is not going to be the guy who fucked up the Toronto Maple Leafs and then traded Sidney Crosby. Like,
Yeah.
he would just
Okay,
be
yeah.
the
Well, when you put
most
it like that,
hated man in the hockey world. Like, I think the
Yeah.
entire nation of Canada would band together to kill that man. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, that's never going to happen. So could one of the other core pieces go? It's certainly not going to be Malkin. I will firmly die on that. He will retire black and gold. The two defensemen who look like they have something up their ass to start the year that drive me and my father crazy, they should be shipped. I don't care. I'm done. Here's one of the last things that I will say about this. Rustin Raquel, I think they'll probably get traded. We just mentioned Lars Eller got traded. I think Pettersson's going to get traded. I do think this is the time where you have to look in the mirror and just say, we are not a good team and we cannot make the playoffs with this roster. So you might as well just go for draft picks. I know that's not what Sid wanted. I don't even know if that's what they're going to do just because of what John Henry, Mr. King of Britain, said to Sid, like, hey, I'm promising you we'll try and win. But for right now, that's my thoughts on this team. And they don't have a goalie. I think I saw yesterday because they lost to the Stars 7-1. It was 6-0 after the first period. My phone blew up with 10 people texting me touchdown as if I'm not watching. Thanks. Appreciate you two included, I think, and fucking Mark. And I was like, all right, I get it. Like, it's funny, haha.
Uh,
Like, that has never happened. I think Bob Grove tweeted this. That has never happened in the Crosby era. That was the
Yeah.
statistically the worst first period in the last 18 or 20 years of the Pittsburgh Penguins.
I
It's pathetic.
I waited until the fourth goal to text you, but oh my God, dude, that I mean, you know how I said like 2 weeks ago that the worst goaltending performance I'd ever seen was Jari in the first period against the Buffalo Sabres earlier this year?
Blomqvist,
Yeah,
yeah.
scratch
yeah.
both of them,
Yeah.
Blomqvist and Ned. Like, oh my
And
God.
you know what the shitty part is? After Friday, when we beat the Capitals, we haven't even talked about that because it
Right.
doesn't matter at this point. Like, that's how bad they lost to the Stars, is that I was so fired up. I was like, what a win. We're coming back. Blomqvist had a bunch of great saves. We beat a team with a winning record. I'm going to give it to Nick and Mac on Tuesday. And we got whipped so bad against Dallas that I can't even brag at this point. And I'm just like,
And
well,
Yeah.
like to the Penguins' credit a little bit, Dallas is a much better hockey team than they are, and a just complete
Yeah.
wagon right now. I mean, they can kill you in like 8 different ways, and they did. Um, but the one thing that really stood out to me, other than Miro Heiskanen just going through the Penguins forwards like a hot knife through butter, was the 3-on-1 that the Penguins had that ultimately led to a Stars goal going the other way. So it's two forwards and Chris Letang, and Chris Letang goes, you know what? There's two forwards and me. I'm gonna be the one to like drive the net.
yeah.
And just gets stuck behind the goal, and
That's
like
beer league shit right
it
there.
was just the most beer league like offensive defenseman movie. It's like, nope, I am the main character of this story. I'm going to the
He's
net.
he's looked horrible. He's looked
Uh,
horrible.
can I say something?
Yes.
Harry, John John William Henry II was born in Quincy, Illinois.
Okay. Well, he sounds British to me, so that's what I'm gonna call him.
All
He's
right.
that's the guy that's on the boat for like the Boston Tea Party where you're like, fuck that guy. Like
He
that's what that sounds like me.
he definitely looks British and he definitely is salt and pepper and he definitely is 75 years old. So I'll give you all of that. Uh anyway, I don't really have much else to add other than this has been hilarious and joyful for me. And
I have
that's
one last thing, and we'll talk about Washington next. The Penguins have 3 games between now and our next recording. They are against relatively weak opponents. We've got the Red Wings on T on T on that. We've got the Red Wings on TNT on Wednesday night. I believe Jari's going to start that game. We'll talk about that more in the Gameland segment. They got the Blue Jackets on Friday. That's on the road. And then they've got San Jose at home on the second half of that back-to-back at home on Saturday. They have to at least win 2 of these games. And if
I'd
they
say all
don't,
three.
they have to go 3-0,
I
buddy.
don't,
Yeah.
I don't think they will.
And
So I'm not even gonna.
you can't go to overtime against CBJ. Like
I
that
don't think
has
they're.
that
Or the Wings.
yeah.
I think CBJ's gonna beat us.
You can cough up a point to the Sharks if you need to, but yeah, the other two you got to win reg.
If they
So
don't win 2 of these 3, I think you have to fire Sullivan.
so that's what my
That's the
last
last thing we
question
need to
was
talk
going to be.
about.
So are they not able to retool because he won't play young players, or are they also just not bringing in the right players? Because Spencer Carberry retooled the Washington Capitals, who were in a worse position, and got them to be a better hockey team. And I know that
Well,
the Caps
yeah.
like had a terrible season, got a great draft pick, and were able to, be fortunate enough to draft Ryan Leonard as low as he was in that draft. He probably would have been significantly higher in any other one. But in this case, are you looking at fire Sullivan first or trade someone else first?
No, I'm in fire Sullivan mode.
Okay.
I think the body language of this team, specifically the leader, captain 87,
Mhm.
they look depressed. Like they don't look like they're having fun. It's horrible to watch, man.
Do you agree with me though that I can so see them losing like two of these next three, firing him before Thanksgiving, and this season totally works out just fine for you guys.
Yes, 100%.
I
I mean, it obviously depends who they hire, but
Or
Right.
who they trade too. Like if they get rid of Raquel or Rust, like it's hard for me to say that we'll be better because we don't have anyone left. It's funny though, because Carberry right now reminds me so much of when Sullivan took over in that he grew up with the minor league guys. He knows Protus, he knows McMichael, he knows whatever other guys who come up through Hershey with him. And because they know and trust him, that's why they're excelling. It's exactly like when Sullivan came up. They had Sherry come up, they had Russ come up, they had all these young guys come up at the same time who excelled. And that's what the Caps are having right now. And they're really fucking good. Like, that's what you need. But um, yeah, I hate being a Penguins fan right now, man. Your best player getting photoshopped in an Avalanche jersey 2 months after people were saying, "Oh, they'll never do that again." He signed the extension. Well, here we are again. Thanks, Biz. All right, let's
that
move on to
was that
Washington.
was one of the best segments we've ever had on the show. That was
Agreed.
awesome. I had a great time.
Let's
We should do that every week.
it might happen every week. We'll see. I'll let you guys start off with Washington, and then I want to touch on their schedule.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say. I mean, we've been singing their praises the last couple of weeks. Not a whole lot has changed. Losing to the Pens sucked. Just wasn't our game. We didn't look that good. But hey, we come right back the next night and just blow the doors off the Blues. So that was pretty cool.
I love that like the two teams just went in polar opposite directions. Like the Caps just the next night picked up right where they probably should have been in that Penguins game and just absolutely went to work. Lunch pail hockey, and then the third period turned into the skills competition. But um and then the Penguins just go the complete opposite way, get dog walked by the Dallas Stars.
That is
But
kind of funny.
yeah,
I mean, again, also Blues and Stars, so like understandable, but
yeah. I know we've talked about, guys on the Caps that are really stepping up and having great years. We talked about Dylan Strome and the fact that he's on pace for 125, 130 points. We've talked about Connor McMichael, guys top 5 in NHL goal scoring right now, which is just crazy. We've talked about Alexei Protas, but like guys, even in that Penguins game, like Jacob Vrana up and down the ice, ton of energy. Really, you just love seeing that. Even in the Blues game, Scarbosa I thought looked good. I know he's taken a couple penalties in the game since he's been up, but like I mean, he scored too. I mean, it just seems like the plug and play is kind of working for this team right now with this roster. They've brought Sonny Milano back, who I will admit has not looked good at all, but for this Capitals team this year, I would almost say that that's a good problem to have right now.
yeah. So I guess the only other thing to really dive into that we haven't yet is what does this Lars Eller trade mean for the Caps? And
Right.
I think that what will happen is because a lot of people were like, oh, he'll be the extra forward. I don't think so, at least not until he gives us a reason to be. I think he'll slot right into the lineup. And I would guess that we'll send down. I don't know if they'll send down Scarbosa or Lapierre. I also don't know off the top of my head if either of those guys need to clear waivers or what's going on with that. But if you're talking about just like deserving, I kind of feel like they should send Lapierre down. It hurts to say it because I feel like this keeps happening where we're like, he just needs one more year in the AHL. And it's starting to get to the point where it's like, shit, is this guy going to be a bust or something? I know he's still young, so I don't want to get ahead of myself. But if it were me, I would probably send Lapierre down and I guess keep like Scarbosa and Milano as the extras, or do we is that still too many? I can't even do the math in my
No, I
head.
think you're right there. I mean, if you're counting Vrana in the lineup and you're basically
Yeah.
putting Eller at 3C, which is everyone is just assuming I think that's where he would slot best.
Yeah, and I mean the good thing is that, and a year ago I would have not expected this to happen, but the good thing is that McMichael is thriving on the wing. I
Yes.
for sure thought that he was going to need to be a center, and I thought it was not working at all to try and like make him play wing, but it's become very clear that he's fitting in great on that side. So that's a good problem. And I think maybe that was part of the decision in getting another 3C. It's like, okay, Lars Eller was our 3C for a super long time. He knows the guys. He knows. I think he played for Carbs, didn't he? Or was
I
he?
don't think so.
No, we traded him right before.
I think he went to the Avs when
You're right.
Laviolette was coaching,
The
right?
year that we did not make the playoffs. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be interesting to see, and hopefully, because I know he didn't finish super strong with the Caps, so maybe that was a Laviolette problem. We'll find out. But all that to say, on paper, Strome, Dubois, Eller, Dowd down the middle. That sounds real
That's
nice to
solid.
me.
That's
I
solid.
the other thing I think that's interesting, and I think you make a great point with Lappy, is I don't think Carberry loves him playing center because we've seen him be in the lineup and then we've seen him be healthy scratch so far this year. So maybe that's a situation like McMichael where you move that guy over to wing
Mhm.
now that you have a stable third line veteran center,
Yeah.
who's won a Stanley Cup, who's been in the league for God knows how long at this point.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
And
maybe he's
I think he's
another option on the
35.
wing. Yeah, yeah. I think you're right.
I know too that they've had Protus play center at certain points. I know he can do it, but I think
Yeah.
either way, it's nice to have somebody that's not like, well, this guy's still trying to establish himself as a center in the league. That's a hard thing to do at 3C, in my opinion.
Yes.
So I do like the move of just getting a guy in there that's like, look, this guy knows what he's doing. Maybe he's not going to score 30 goals or 20 goals or whatever, but
Don't need him to.
yeah,
He's played really well for Pittsburgh too. I think that's worth mentioning. He's looked
And
he
great.
has.
the
I don't
face-off numbers are pretty good.
I
And I
don't think he
think,
was scratched at all in Pittsburgh ever.
yeah. And
No, he was scoring some big goals for us. I mean,
Mhm.
he's and like legitimate like snipes from the face-off circles, and we're not talking garbage
Yeah,
goals.
he can rip
Yeah.
it.
All right, real quick, and then we'll get to trivia. Just want your initial thoughts because I like to look at the team's calendars when we're talking about specific guys. These next 10 games, I mean, I'm not looking at the Caps whole schedule. I gotta imagine this is up there for toughest gauntlet of the year. They've got some pretty good teams that they're going against here. We got the Leafs, Avalanche twice, the Golden Knights, Utah, New Jersey twice, the defending Cup champs, Tampa, and the Islanders divisional game. Like what? I don't know. I feel like the next 10 games are really going to tell us like how good is this team.
It's prove it hockey. There's a lot of people saying that, it's a fluky start or whatever, and it'll be interesting to see if that's the case or not, I guess.
Yeah, I think, the Caps do have a history from the NHL schedule makers of getting a little bit shafted when it comes down to like this time of year, December, January,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. I'm not going to say that that's what's going on now, but
We always do seem to go really cold for at least like 1 month. So I
yeah.
am a little worried about that for sure.
That being said, all of these games are winnable. I know Colorado has picked it up. Vegas will always be Vegas, and Utah, I feel like you just don't really know what you're going to get on a night in, night out basis. What I think is really interesting is a lot of these games are on the road. The
Yeah.
Caps record right now, 7-2 at home, 3-2 on the road. So they've played a lot more home games than they have road games. We've seen some pretty big road wins. Obviously, that Blues one probably being the biggest out of all of them. But these are, Mac, I think you nailed it. It's prove it hockey.
Yeah. 3 games through the Rocky Mountains on the road and then the little Florida swing back to back.
Yeah, we also always play horrible against the Leafs. Last year, if I remember correctly, we played like shit against the Coyotes at the time. So yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Gonna fly through the gambling segment, but before we do, just a reminder, this segment is brought to you by Prop Tracker. Prop Tracker is your home for player prop research and finding outlier bets for NHL, NBA, NFL, and more. Once you find a bet you like, start tracking it and get notified on its progress like shots, rebounds, or receptions. PropTrackerApp.com/emptybetters to try a free month on us. Link in bio, and we're always tweeting the link as well. I'm going to fly through this gambling segment because we know this episode is running long, but real quick, just a couple trends to note that have been broken. The Avalanche had hit the over in all 8 games at home. And of course, the first time I bet it last night on Monday against the Predators, they officially blow it. Vegas, they were also 8-0 at home, just straight up on the money line. And then Carolina spoiled that at T-Mobile on Monday. There is one team that I think people should be keeping an eye on this week, the Tampa Bay Lightning. Very early bye week in the season. It's been a full week by the time Thursday comes around since they played a game. I think their next game is Thursday. They dropped 4 in a row prior to this bye week, and their schedule going into this week and the weekend, they've got Winnipeg at home, Jersey at home, and then Pittsburgh on the road. So just a interesting
That
little
is
tidbit.
interesting. Yeah, it'd be wild to see if they lose 2 or 3 of those games because they came out real hot, but all of a sudden they could be in trouble if they drop too many of those.
Feels like every game is a high scoring one with them, but that Winnipeg game at home after having a week off, I'm really interested to see how they compete. I am crazy and I understand that, so I'm going to say this and I'm going to sound absolutely nuts, but we're going to talk a little bit about dialing in on players with some motivation here. Mitchkov, we talked about him a little bit already. He was a healthy scratch for 2 straight games, and then on Monday, a goal and an assist in the shootout winner against the Sharks. Definitely responded. Uh, dare I say, if Tristan Jarry starts on Wednesday against Detroit. He's been down for 2 weeks in the AHL. He posted unreal numbers down there. Not expecting him to be good coming back up, but for the first game and after the waxing that the Penguins just got, I think Penn's money line on TNT against the Wings is a good bet. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm
I
not
like
even
the
biased.
logic.
Yeah, I
That
don't
makes
hate
sense to me. The crazy thing is, I don't even think you need Jari to be like good. You just need him to be consistent.
Yeah, I'd expect a big effort out of him Wednesday as well as the group. Maybe Penn's first period money line if you think we'll blow it, because I do too. Matt Duchene and Tyler Sagan, keep an eye on those two guys. We were tweeting some stuff out from the Twitter account last night on Monday about some of their prop stats. Great value every night, and they're very, very consistent so far. But that's it for our gambling chatter for the episode. We're going to wrap up with trivia with Mac, but before he does that, I know he has a word from Raycon.
Sure do. The most exciting thing about Black Friday, Cyber Monday is getting an amazing deal you wouldn't normally get, except with Raycon, because with Raycon, you can get an amazing deal on premium audio every day of the year. But that doesn't mean they're not having any sales for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Far from it. They're actually doubling down on their amazing value by offering viewers up to 30% site-wide. Looking for a Black Friday, Cyber Monday deal you'll appreciate every single day? Try Raycon's Everyday Earbuds. Their latest model includes plenty of new features that make them even more of a must-have for any audio lover. For example, they now feature a 32-hour battery life and multi-point connectivity that lets you pair with 2 devices at once. Raycons start at just half the price as the other guys, so they're already on an incredible deal, even before you factor in their offer of up to 30% off site-wide. It's time to save big for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Go to buyraycon.com/THPN today to get up to 30% off site-wide. That's right. You'll get up to 30% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/THPN. All right. I've got a good one. I know it's been long, so I'll try and give you guys hints on some of the ones you might not be able to get. But my question for you is top 10 most Gordie Howe hat tricks of all time. How many can you name? For those who don't know, just in case you live under a rock, Gordie Howe hat trick, a goal, an assist, and a fight in the same game.
Oh, you want me to start?
Go ahead.
Wow, this is a great question though. John LeClaire.
Ooh,
Not on there.
Fuck.
Brendan Shanahan.
He is on there. He is tied with the second most. He's got 17 of them.
Okay.
Gary Roberts.
Not on there.
Doug Gilmore.
Also not on there.
Fuck. Do we know all these names?
There's 2 that I will straight up tell you I've never heard of, and maybe I'm going to sound crazy because
Okay.
maybe they're big names and I'm just an idiot, but I've never heard of 2 of these guys.
Okay.
Also, just in general, a lot of these guys are like either GMs or coaches now or work in. So, like, I'll just say that.
Okay.
Okay. Who are the 2 that we have no idea who they are?
One who's got 16 of them, Wilf Payment
Nope.
I've heard the last name.
or Paymont. I don't know. The other one, and he's in the picture, he's got no helmet on and he's wearing a Blackhawk sweater. So it's probably from a real long time ago. Al Secord.
Nope.
He's got 10 of them.
Sorry, Al.
All right, so those two are off. You already got Shanahan. That's 3. You got 7 more. And all these other guys are absolute household names.
I know who number 1 is.
All right.
Rip it.
Rick Tocchet.
Yes, sir, with 18.
How did I not guess that one?
18 of them. There you go.
How did I not guess that? And you said a lot of them are coaches
Or
or
GMs or working in the league in some capacity. Yeah.
Nick, if you know more,
Or involved in the league in some capacity, I'll say.
Um,
I think I might have one.
Okay.
go.
How about Jim Montgomery?
Nope. Harry, one of these guys is like one of your favorite players of all time.
Iginla?
Yes, sir.
Nice.
Yeah.
11 of them.
Just got selected to the Hall of Fame selection committee. Shout out.
Also, one of these players is what I was drinking during this recording because I'm really tired.
Paul Coffey.
There you go. Sorry, I'm just
I
slam dunking
never would've-
some of these for you.
Paul
It's
Coffey?
run long.
Really?
That's
Coffee is last on the list with 9 of them.
Damn.
So how many we got left?
1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of them. You're missing 4. Or wait, 5. Wait, 1, 2, 3. No, just 4.
Okay. About Ryan Getzlaff.
Nope.
Doug Armstrong.
No. One of these should be easy. We actually mentioned this guy right before we started recording.
Okay. I think I know who that is.
Go.
Mess.
No.
What?
Roenick?
Nope. But we were talking about this guy during the conversation about Rowan.
Keith?
Yes. Keith Kachuk.
Big Walt.
10 of them.
How did I not get that?
Yeah. Come on now.
3 more.
Are any of these guys left over, like front office or coaches currently?
Let me double check before I sound like an idiot real
Okay.
quick.
It's just 3 more.
So the guy, this one guy is currently not employed as a coach in the NHL, but was very recently, and I wouldn't be surprised if he is again soon. I'm sure there are a number of teams talking to him, maybe right now as we speak, maybe including the Penguins. Who knows?
Oh God. Actually, wait. Is Berube in there?
He is not. That's a good guess, though.
It's not Quenville, is it? He didn't play long enough.
No.
What's
Yeah.
the other name that they said? Oh, people are probably look at this guy.
When I just searched this guy's name, the first thing is blank blank confirms he has not spoken with the Canadians.
Yeah,
But there's been
2
rumors that
names. Quenville and who? Why am I blanking on that? I don't. I'm pissed I can't get that. All right.
I know for a fact Gordie Howe is nowhere near the top 10 on this list.
No, he's not, which is hilarious.
Just to
Right.
clear the air here.
Didn't he? I think I saw some stat. He had like 2 of these or
It's
something
2,
like that.
Might need some help.
Why is this not called the Rick Tocchet hat trick?
Right.
I can't think.
All right, a hint on another one is that he's a most usually associated with the Bruins.
Cam Neely.
Yes, sir.
That's a good pull.
Who's the
Nick.
dead man who hit me with the salt shaker?
Neely's got 12. Okay, so you've got 2 left. One is the coach I was just talking about. This other guy, let me see, what's a good hint? I guess, oh man, probably most associated with like the I want to say the Blues probably. Yeah, actually, I'm an idiot. He only ever played for the Blues. 12
Only
years, 12 years in St. Louis from 76 to 88.
Ah, shit.
Uh, almost 800 games in the league, almost 700 points.
It's like out of my era.
Total household name, though.
Is it Fedorko?
Nope.
Nichols?
Nope. He also was a coach in the NHL. I'm trying to figure out when that was. I can't remember. He's got brothers, famous brothers, 6.
Sutter.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Brian Sutter.
And who's
Come on,
this
this
coach?
last one I'm not helping you anymore with because this should have been one of the first ones you get.
Quenneville and who?
Are we talking like old head or just like no help whatsoever?
What do you mean by old head?
Who did he last coach? Are you able to tell me that?
I feel like that would give it away.
Like playing career, are we talking like 70s, 80s? I would consider that old head because, I was born in 94, so.
His first game in the NHL was in 1985.
Okay.
His last game in the NHL was in 1995.
Gotcha.
I swear I read an article today that was like Quenneville and so
Yeah, I'm sure you did. You guys are gonna be pissed when you hear this.
I just read it today.
The teams he played for, this wouldn't have helped me, so I'll just tell you. He played for the Red Wings for almost his whole career, and then he had a couple games with the Bolts. But I don't believe he coached either of those teams.
I'm not gonna get it.
Hold
I'm
on.
not gonna get
Hold on. So Red Wings from 70 something or from 85 to 95, basically, where he played
to
with
93, and then from 93 to 95, a handful of games with the Bolts across 2 seasons.
Oh, God.
He first started coaching in the NHL as a head coach in 2003. He was with a current Metro team for about 2.5 years. Then he went to a current Atlantic team for about 2.5 years. Then he went to a current Pacific team for about 2.5 years. And then most recently, he was with a Metro team for like 1.5 years. And he just stopped last year. Or two years ago. There we go.
Oh my God. How'd I not?
Yeah, Gallant.
Jesus.
So, in recap, here's the list.
Top to bottom.
Rick Tocchet with 18, Brendan Shanahan with 17, Brian Sutter with 17, Wilf Payment with 16.
Attaboy, Wilf.
Cam Neely with 12, Jerome McGinley with 11, Keith Tkachuk with 10, Gerard Gallant with 10, Al Secord with 10, and Paul Coffey with 9.
Wow.
Hell of a trivia. Hell of a trivia.
A doozy.
That was actually a fun one.
I told you, that's a tough one.
I'm pissed I didn't get more of those. Nick, you kind of carried that. All right, fellas. That about wraps it up. If you guys don't have any final notes, we'll get the listeners on out of here.
Nope, I'm good.
All right, everybody. Appreciate the love and support as always. And without further ado,
class dismissed.